Blessings to everybody. I pray that all is well. Give me 1 second and we'll get started. Blessings to you. Blessings to you. My name is Apostle Lisa Biggers. I want to welcome you to this week, Deliver Me Nugget. And so today what we're going to talk about is part 2 about don't get distracted by what they said, but press towards your healing. Don't get distracted by what they said, but press towards your healing. And we're talking about this because this is a time where a lot of times we was told as little kids, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. We all know that that is a lie. Words do hurt us. And so if a person has not gotten healed, if a person have not got delivered, guess what? Words can destroy somebody's life. Words can ruin somebody. It affects a person's self-esteem. It affects how they look at themselves. It affects how they look at the whole world. And so this is a very precious topic. And so I'm going to talk about it today from the standpoint how you really got to be mature when somebody's talking about you, and you got to really understand what's really going on. Because if you're really trying to work towards being a better person, you want to begin to overcome some issues that may have happened in your life, you got to understand that hell is going to fight you. How do hell fight you? Hell fight you by bringing a man or a woman, somebody to say some ugly things about you. And a lot of times it's about people who you know, people who you love, people who you care about. And when they say things about you, it gets to your heart. It hurts. And we got to be honest with ourselves, and we got to begin to let God know that it hurts about when somebody said something about us, or somebody who we was close to, or somebody lied on you. This is where you got to really stay focused, because the enemy is using the incident to bless us to you. The enemy is using this incident when somebody has said something about you to hurt you, to make you go backwards, to make you be at a place where you shut up, you stop going forward. And you got to begin to understand that this is a tactic of the enemy. I always let people know the devil is not coming with a pitchfork. He uses human beings. He uses human beings to speak ugly and negative things out of their mouth. And a lot of times you got to understand people are so wounded. People are so evil in their hearts. And you know what? People can do good things, but they can be just as wicked, and they can be just as evil. And you know what? And misery loves company. A lot of times when people are not happy with themselves, they'll look at another person and pick with another person to make them feel better about themselves. And so you got to begin to look at them and say, you know what? They're really wounded, and they went really sick in their head. And so if you begin to get on their level, you are proving that, you know what? You are wounded too. And so this is where you got to be willing to take the mature route and recognize that this person got some issues. You got to recognize that this person is immature. You got to recognize that this person is trying to bring you out of God and get you into the flesh. Because the Bible, we're going to talk about how in Matthew 18:15, it talked about when you got an offense with your brother or your sister, you're supposed to go towards that person and you should be able to talk. But I found out that when you try to talk to people, when they know that they're guilty, they want to yell, they want to holler, they want to hang up the phone in your face, because you know why? People don't want to take responsibility for what they do. And a lot of times people will throw a rock and then they'll hide their hand and not recognize that, you know what you did in the dark, God said he's going to bring it to the light. And this is what we got to understand. You're going to reap what you sow. And so this is why we got to really check our heart while we're so quick to be talking about people when you know that your life is jacked up. We're talking and we're airing people dirty laundry. We're talking about people telling people business when really that shows that you have no business of your own for you to go around and talk about somebody else's business. And this is where you got to understand, you know what? These people need help. And so I'm going to talk about it from this standpoint. And I'm talking about it because something like this just recently happened to me. A situation where somebody was letting me know that somebody had said some stuff about me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to let it go on. I'm going to let it go on. But when they tried to pull another person and my life into the situation, I had to go back and ask the person, you know what? why is this going on? And and this is where you get some people where we don't want to take responsibility. We may act like we don't remember. We may act like we don't know. But right is right and wrong is wrong. The Bible says, you know what? You ought to love your neighbor as yourself. And when I can take it upon myself to hurt somebody else, you're telling me right now that you don't love yourself. Because if I didn't do anything to you, but my name is over here, my name is over there, that tells me that, you know what, you got some issues going on. And I understand that the devil want to try to pull me out because my focus is on being a better person, not just being an apostle or a leader, but being a better person, a better mother, a better friend. I want to become a better person, and I want to be able to have the reflection in the love of God in my heart and it being displayed. Because can I tell you, anybody can shout and dance, but when pressure is applied to you, that's what it's going to really tell what's on the inside of you. And so when something like this happens, God is trying to show you to the person. Because sometimes we think that we know people. Sometimes we feel like, you know what, they ain't going to do me like that. They love me. They care about me. And this is what you got to understand. People, you'll find out people don't care about you how you think they care about you. You'll find out people don't love you how you think that they love you because they're letting you see the real them. The Bible says you would know a tree by the fruit that it bears. And so when you find people being messy, people being gossiping, people being a talebearer, people having a split tongue, one minute they love you, the next minute they cussing you out, he's letting you know to look at that person. He's letting you know that the person that you're dealing with is not right. He's letting you know that the person that you're dealing with is evil. Because see, and what makes them evil is that when people will smile in your face and act like they love you, but behind the scenes, they stabbing you in the back. And this is where you got to begin to understand, I got to pray for this person. Because this telling me, yeah, I'm saying that you got to pray for them. After you tried to talk to them, you tried to rationalize, because the Bible said you go to them. You go and you let them know. Because it's where you're trying to do it the biblical way. But I found out you see so many believers in church and they don't do it the biblical way. Because if you have a problem, we're supposed to be willing to talk. But a lot of times the reason why people don't want to talk about it, because number one, they're not bold enough to deal with the real issue. They don't want to face what they said. They don't want to face, and they don't want to look you in the face saying what they saying. And see, are we perfect? No. But this is where the Bible said when you know better, you're supposed to do better. And so when we saying that we love God, but then yet we're saying ugly things, we're doing ugly things, we got to understand that we're immature. You got to check your heart. The Bible said in Jeremiah 17, he said your heart is deceitfully wicked. In other words, he was saying that the heart is crooked and the heart is polluted. Well, one minute people saying that we're children of God, but then yet our actions and the way that we talk does not reflect that we're children of God. And so if we're not a children of God, then we got to ask yourself, well then, who child are you then? Because if you're slandering somebody's name, the Bible talk about in Revelation, Satan is the accuser of the brethren. What is an accuser? Accuser is somebody who will bring false charges, or either accuser is somebody who have a complaint about you, or accuser is somebody who is offended with you. And this is where you got to understand the devil is always looking for somebody to use, you know what, to bring accusations. And when you read this text, it talks about how the accuser of the brethren is seeking to accuse the saints day and night. And the Bible talks about at least twice a day that the devil is coming up with charges that he's going to speak to somebody in their mind to speak negative about you. And this is why we have to be in a place of prayer. We have to be in a place where we got to say, you know what, God, guard my heart. God, help me, because what they said, it hurt. What they said, I trusted them. God, you know, I didn't think they would do this. I didn't think they would act like that. Can I tell you, this is where you got to go back to God. Go back to God. Don't sit there and hold all that stuff in. Don't get depressed. No, talk talk back to your creator. This is why he told us to cast our cares upon him, because he cares for us. We got to understand that God do not want us to hold all this stuff in our heart, in our mind, in our soul, because some people are sick because they're carrying what somebody else said on the inside of them, and they never mention it to somebody. They never mention it to God. But see, we got to begin to give it to God, because guess what? God can heal you. God can deliver you. And so this is where, when you're pressing towards your healing, you got to be willing to make the best decision for you, because the enemy wants you to be messy. The enemy wants you to begin to get on that level with the person who come at you with the accusations, and you got to understand the enemy is going to do what he got to do, and you got to be able to recognize it. Somebody came to me and telling me somebody said this and somebody said I'm doing this. I said, well, let me know who the person is. Well, no, I don't want to. Well, you know what? Why did you call me? See, and this is what I'm saying. This is why you can't get distracted, because if you're going to call me and if you're going to tell me what somebody said, but then you want to argue, you want to fuss, but you don't want to get to the bottom of it. That tells me you're coming to distract me. And you got to understand, the enemy knows when you're growing. The enemy knows when you're getting stronger. He knows when you're moving towards where God needs you to be at. And so guess what? He's going to bring situations and circumstances to try to pull you out. He's going to bring these things to get you to a place so that you can stop working on your healing. And this is where you got to be willing to press. What does press mean? That means you got to push beyond the opposition. You got to push beyond your tears. Yeah, you may be crying. Yeah, you may be feeling some kind of way, but you got to push through. You got to press through. While you're pressing through, because you got to understand, your goal is to be healed. Your goal is to be mature. Your goal is to grow. And so if you're talking about delivering me from me, you can't go back and respond by how you used to respond. You got to be willing to say, you know what? I got to handle this the right way. Guess what? That means you are going to feel some kind of way. You are going to feel hurt. You are going to feel pain. You got to be willing to talk about it. Why? Because you want to make sure you don't get bitter. You want to make sure you don't harbor any resentment in your heart for what that person did. And this is where you got to begin to understand, sometimes you won't be able to get closure, because if you're going to get closure, it's going to take two people working together. And sometimes when you're talking about confronting people and getting to the bottom of things, sometimes people don't want to tell you the truth, and you got to be willing to say, you know what, I'm going to forgive them, and I'm going to move on, and I'm going to press towards my healing. You got to be willing to move on, even though your feelings may say, let us talk again. No, we're not going to keep on going back and forth if nothing is being resolved. We got to be willing to let it go, and we got to be willing to move on. This is why the Bible says in Philippians 3, it says in verse 13, 3 and 13, he said, brethren, I do not count myself to have apprehended, but one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind me. See, that means that's a choice. I got to choose to forget whatever that the situation is, what they said, and I got to let people go on with their confusion. I got to let people go on to keep stirring up mess, because guess what? God is my defense. Sometimes we got to be blessed to you. We got to understand that God say, I am your protector. Sometimes we try to protect ourselves, and God saying, if you are my child, you don't have to fight this battle. You just pray and you just stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. You just got to understand and guard your heart so you can continue to grow, because the enemy don't want you to grow. The enemy wants you to keep playing it over and over in your mind what they said. Can I tell you, when a person is sick in their mind, you can't make any sense out of why they did what they did. It's not going to make sense to you why you say, I don't understand. I was good to them. I helped them. I tried to, be a friend to them. I tried to be in a relationship. You got to understand, when people are sick, when they're wounded, when they're hurt, when they're dealing with trauma, when they're dealing with abuse in their mind, you got to understand, you can't rationalize with a person that has been damaged, because when they have been damaged, they only see what they feel. They only see the hurt or whatever that they may be feeling about you. And so you, as the mature one, you got to be willing to pray. That's why the Bible says you pray for those that hurt you. You pray for those that talk about you. He said, if your enemy is hungry, to feed them. If they thirsty, give them something to drink, and not saying, get them, God, get them. No, I'm going to pray, God, help them because they are really sick. Lord, I need you to help them because they're trying to slander my name, but they forgot the scriptures. The Bible say, touch not my anointed, do my prophet no harm. They forgot that the Bible say you reap what you sow. So what you are sowing, you forgot that you got to reap what you are sowing. And see, this is where God said you got to get back to the word, because when you get back to the word, you're not going to harbor malice in your heart. You got to understand, to be delivered, you got to be willing to press towards the mark. You got to be keeping your eyes on God, because the enemy want to get you at a place where you stay wounded and you keep rehearsing the past. You keep rehearsing the pain. You keep rehearsing the things that people have said, the things that people have done. And you got to understand, you know what? I got to forgive them and I got to move on. You got to know that forgiveness is not for them. Forgiveness is for you, because you got to understand God is trying to grow you. God is trying to mature you. Those people are not saying, God, I want to be mature. They're not saying, God, I'm ready to grow. You got to understand that we will be tested. And so when the enemy comes to try to bring things to us, we got to make sure that we are passing the test, because the enemy is sending these accusations against you because he want to get you out of character. Oh, we thought you was a believer. Oh, we thought you was a man of God. We thought you was a woman of God. The stuff that you saying out your mouth, that people are waiting for you to mess up. And this is why you got to guard your heart. This is why you got to get back to a place of prayer, and you got to connect with God and begin to empty yourself to God. This is why he say, cast your cares. This is where you got to say, God, I need you to heal me. I need you to take the pain out of my heart. God, I need you to help me. See, this is where you got to be honest. God, see, when you go get with your friends, oh, if I'm you, yeah, you need to cuss them out. Yeah, you need to slip. No, you got to understand, the Bible tells us to seek godly counsel. We got to begin to handle it the right way. We got to do things the way that children of God handle situations, because God is trying to really show you the person. He's trying to show you the person is not really who you thought they were. So a lot of times we got to stop being in denial about the person, for God is trying to reveal to you who they are. You thought they was a friend, but really they are foe. You thought they was a family member, and he said, no, they are foe. You thought it was a co-worker, and he said, no, they are enemy. You thought it was a church member, and God said, no, they're not for you. So this is where you got to be willing to look at it. It is what it is. Can I tell you, a person can take the title off the name. They can be a husband, wife, brother, sister, girlfriend, boyfriend, pastor, leader, apostle, prophet. The devil do not care who he uses. He just need a human being that will open up their mind and say, do this. And if they do it, that's who he's going to use. So we got to stop that. I can't believe they did this. The devil will use anybody who allow him to use them. So this is where God is saying, stop being in denial, and you got to accept the reality. You got to accept what you didn't want to see. Sometimes God is trying to get us to be healed from abandonment. He's trying to get us to be healed from codependency, because we did not want to see this about the individual. But God is showing you, I tried to show you that they wasn't right. I tried to show you this, but a lot of times we're turning out with heads because we did not want to see it. But you got to understand, if you're going to be healed, you got to be willing to accept it is what it is. You got to be willing to accept that what God is trying to show you about a person, it is what it is. So stop trying to run and say, you know what, I didn't want to see that. You might didn't want to see it, but God is trying to show you this is who that person is. And so sometimes we trying to make somebody good and they're not good. They may be a good person, but they're not good for you because of what they did to you. So that's letting you know how they really feel about you. This is where we got to be willing to stop making excuses for when God is showing you something about a person. This is where God is trying to get you to grow. You got to be willing to push on, because when you look at Philippians 3, it says here, reaching forward to those things which are ahead. Verse 14, I press toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. You got to press towards the prize. God got a prize for you at the end. He said, those that suffer with me shall reign with me. And so you may be going through your suffering right now, but you got to understand that you're not going to always suffer. Just like it's not always summer, now we're getting ready to go into fall. So you got to understand, just like how the seasons are changing, guess what? The season is going to change in your life. So God is showing showing you who people really are, because before he really bring the blessing into your life, God got to remove some people. He got to detach some people. He got to sever some relationships that were not God ordained. He got to sever some things that are not good for you, that you thought that was good for you. And God said, I'm trying to show you, daughter, son, they're not good for you. And so this is where you got to be willing to respect what God is trying to show you about somebody, and be willing to move on. And you got to grow through this. You got to understand you don't have to fear, because see, when you're being healed of abandonment, you're being healed of codependency, you fear because you love that person. And you can genuinely love somebody and they don't love you back. You can genuinely want the best for somebody and they don't feel the same way about you. Even though they said that they love you, but your love and their love do not match. Your love is here and their love is here. So they're telling you something is wrong with this love that they talking about they love. Because guess what? Love don't hurt. Love don't scandalize. Love don't abuse. Love don't destroy. Because the Bible say, am I my brother's or my sister's keeper? So if I find myself hurting my brother and my sister, that's letting me know that I'm no longer working and operating as a child of God. I'm working now as an agent if I start hurting my brother and my sister intentionally. And so when I'm going around deliberately hurting somebody, you got to know that that's intentional, because stuff don't just slip out of your mouth. Stuff don't just, you just hurt somebody's feelings. No, this is where the Bible says one of the fruit of the Spirit is self-control. And this is where we got to be willing to get some self-control. This is where you got to recognize that these people, they are who they are, and you got to stop making excuses for them because you did not want to see the truth about them. God is saying, I'm trying to show you the truth. So you got to be willing to accept the truth. And so even though no matter how many good feelings, how many good memories you got, but you got to understand it is what it is, because those relationships that are worth saving, you're going to be able to work through it. You're going to be willing to talk to one another. You're going to be able to respect one another. You're going to be able to honor one another. But when you can no longer respect and honor a person, you are dealing with an enemy. You are dealing with a foe. You're dealing with somebody who do not look at you and see you the same way as God sees you, especially if you're coming with love. And if you're coming with love, but then yet they're coming with hostility. They're coming with conflict. You're dealing with somebody who's coming with messiness and confusionist. So this is why you got to be willing to accept the truth. Accept the truth for what it really is. You got to accept that it's ugly. You got to accept that, that this is not right. You got to accept that, something in my eye. You got to accept that, I don't like the way that they feel. I've been let down. I did not see this coming from that person. And you got to understand, God is trying to show you it's time to grow. This is where you got to be willing to let go, and you got to be willing to move on. That's what I said. You got to be willing to move on. Stop playing replay in your mind about what they did. This is where you got to give it to God, and you got to be willing to move on. You got to understand every day it's going to get easier, but you got to be willing to move on and stop thinking about it and stop. Well, it's on my mind. Well, you got to keep on praying. God, I need you to help me. God, I need your strength. And this is where you got to say, you know what? Because I love me. Because when you love you, you're going to keep fighting for you. But see, we stop loving ourselves and we'll start fighting for somebody else. This is where the deliver me from me come in at. Because when you stop working to help yourself, but then yet you trying to, why you doing this? And you going, you fussing and back and forth. No. Now you have stopped your healing to go into a place of confusion. God is not the author of confusion. And if anybody wants you to act in the flesh, it's confusion. You do not stop working on yourself to go argue and fuss with another person. Because if you're going to fuss and argue, you might as well leave it alone. This is where you got to learn to care for yourself. Care for yourself. Stop holding on to it, because you got to understand that by you holding on to the pain, you holding on to what they did, that's going to make you bitter. That's going to make you have resentment in your heart. That's going to cause you to detach and separate yourself from God. You got to understand, nobody is not worth you being separated from God. This is where you got to learn to care about you. Do what the word say do. You got to care about you. He say, let it go. He say, putting aside those things that are behind you, and you got to press towards the mark. He said in verse 15, therefore let us, as many as are are mature have this mind. In other words, you got to have the mind of Christ. You got to be willing to press forward. You can't think that this stuff just gonna magically go away. You're going to go through some stuff when somebody talking about you. You're going to feel some kind of way. You're going to hurt, but it's okay. It's okay, but you got to keep on pressing forward. You got to go through this process, because this is a process that God is trying to grow you. Because guess what? If you keep growing, you're going to make it over to the other side. So let them talk. Hold your head up. Put a smile on your face. This is where you say, you know what? It's my responsibility to make myself happy. I'm not going to be unhappy because of what somebody said about me. I'm going to let them have it, and I'm going to choose to push blessings. I'm going to choose to go forward. And this is where God is saying, pay attention to how you feel. Get into a place of prayer. Begin to journal. Sometimes it's good to journal your feelings. Journal how you feel. Let it out. Begin to get with somebody who you can trust. Somebody who's not going to backstab. Somebody who's not going to create more chaos. But begin to really tell them how you feel. Sometimes you may have to cry. Sometimes you may have to scream. Sometimes you may say, I'm angry. I'm mad. Get those feelings out. All of this is working towards you being healed and pressing forward. See, the enemy wants you to do it and this yelling and stuff to them. No, get by yourself and begin to tell God it hurts. Begin to tell God and make you feel some kind of way. Ask God to heal your heart. Ask God to heal these wounds. Ask God to grace you to go through it. Ask God to grace you to move forward. This is where you got to understand. You got to have a response that you want to change. You want to change. Say, I want to change. I don't want to walk around holding this stuff. I don't want to walk around being bitter, depressed, and mad and wounded. You know, they talk about a damaged black woman. They talk about a damaged man, a damaged girl, boy. It's because this is when a person is angry and they have not channeled what they've been dealing with on the inside. This is where some people are so sick in their body because they're holding in what somebody said. Because you got to understand, sometimes if you can't talk to a person, sometimes you need to write them a letter. Sometimes you need to say, you know what, this is what I want to say to you, but can you read it? This is where you got to be willing to get it out of your heart and begin to let it out and say, this is how I feel. This made me feel somewhere. What are you doing? You're taking a mature route because you're saying, I'm not going to walk around having an attitude with you and acting like, you know what, I don't. I'm not going to walk around acting like I'm fine with you and I know that I'm really not. So this is where we got to be willing to listen. We got to be listening. If you're going to grow, you got to listen to that other person. Let them talk. Listen to them when they saying what they saying. Because sometimes if that person really want to save the relationship, they're going to be honest with you. But when you find people, they can't talk to you, they hollering, they yelling, they trying to get a response, or they messy, or the enemy is using them to distract you. So you got to know the difference, because when it's a person who genuinely care about you, they want to get to the bottom of it. They're going to take responsibility and they're going to say, I'm sorry, this is my part. I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have agreed with this. I shouldn't have done that. They're going to take the mature route and they're going to say what they did. But if you can't get a person to say what they did, that's telling you the person does not respect you. The person does not value the relationship. And you got to understand, you got to be willing to see it the way that God is showing you. And you got to be willing to give it to the Lord and let it go and move on. Because now God is showing you that they really don't want the relationship. They don't respect it. It has no value to them. And so you got to understand that when you're learning how to love yourself, if somebody is showing you that they don't value you, that's your indication. It's time to go. It's time to leave the relationship. It's time to walk out the relationship. Because when a person do not value you, they basically saying, I don't love you. Sometimes people would get so used to treating you like a trash can. But when you begin to say, no more am I going to allow you to do this, no longer are you going to do this to me, people have a problem with you because now you're speaking up for yourself. And when you start speaking up for yourself, now people got a problem. Well, you ain't been said that. You ain't normally having that. Well, I'm saying something now. And so this is where you got to understand, when you are trying to be healed, You can't get distracted and you can't look at them and trying to please them. No, when you're working on being healed, your first priority is to connect back to God and to connect to yourself. What do I mean connecting with yourself? You got to understand what hurts you, and you got to know what's good for you and what's not good for you. And when somebody begin to show you that they're not good for you, you need to pay attention. You need to recognize. But when you are ignoring somebody do not value you and they don't respect you and they don't honor you, but you're respecting and honoring them, that's your indication it's time to bail out. It's time to walk out. And it's no longer time to be pursuing something, because guess what? You can't make somebody want to do something that they don't want to do. Our mistake is we think we can pray somebody to want to change. People got to want to change. God would never go up against a person's will. I don't care how long you can be with a person, how long you know a person. But if a person don't want to change, you can fast, you can pray, you can have a million prayer warriors. But if that person don't want to change, that person will not change. And you got to be willing to accept it for really what it is and know how to move on and stop trying to hold on. You can't keep beating a horse and trying to make it do right when the horse saying that ain't what I want to do. And so this is where we got to understand that God is trying to show us enough with the distractions, enough with trying to figure people out. God ain't told us to figure people out, because if a person is in a relationship with you, they're going to want to work the relationship out. If they don't want to work it out, they are talking, even though they ain't saying nothing, but they are talking. And we got to begin to understand what people are saying. They talking even though they ain't speaking with their mouth, but they giving you body language, and their actions are talking to you. So let's stop being ignorant. The Bible says my people perish because they lack knowledge. People are talking to us by their body language. People are talking to us how they treat us, how they talk to us. And it's because if you don't want to accept responsibility, guess what? You are now subjecting yourself to the abuse. And guess what God would do? He will allow you to remain in that situation until you recognize that something is wrong with it. Because God will send people in your life to show you, just like how I'm talking on this video. He will send people on your life to let you know what you're doing is in error. But if you don't want to listen, if you don't want to accept it, God will allow the situation to judge you. He will allow this, because that's what you chose. You rejected the counsel. You rejected the knowledge. And you chose to go through what you go through because you thinking you know what you're doing, not understanding when a person is not healed or delivered. Guess what? Their perception is tainted. And when a person's perception is tainted, it will cause them to look at things in a polluted. That's why the Bible say their heart is deceitfully wicked. That means your heart is polluted. Your heart is crooked. In other words, your heart don't know the difference between when something is right and when something is wrong, because you have not taken the time to allow God to heal you. And so as I get ready to close out, I pray that even these past 2 weeks, how I've been talking about, don't get distracted by what they said. Because guess what? As long as we live, people are going to talk about you. They're going to talk about if you're doing good. They're going to talk about you if you're doing bad. If they talked about Jesus Christ, you know that they're going to talk about you. And so this is why we got to be, it will behoove you to get healed. It will behoove you to work on yourself, because when you're working on yourself, you'll begin to look at them from the right perspective to say, no, I'm not going to get on your level, but I'm going to pray for you, because it's obvious that you need some help. It's obvious that you got some serious things going on in your life. The reason you feel like you got to tear me down, or you got to call me out my name, or you want to scandalize my name or tell my business to make you look like a better person. So if that makes you feel good, you know what? I feel sorry for you, because you're really in a bad place. And so you need to really pray for that person, because that person is severely wounded and they're in dear need of some deliverance. And so this is where you got to be willing to move on, to pray for them, and keep pressing towards your healing. So this is Apostle Lisa Biggers. I pray that this message got you thinking. I pray that it got you looking at some situations. And I want to say again, this is not easy. This is where you're willing to be mature. And again, you're going to feel some kind of way, but you got to understand when you are growing, you got to die to what this flesh is dealing with, and you got to begin to press towards the mark. You got to push beyond the resistance because God is trying to grow you and God is taking you somewhere. The Bible says to much is given, much is required. That's right, Miss Karina. You got to be willing to move on. And if you're going to move forward with your life, you can't move forward if you keep talking about what people saying. Because people going to keep on talking. Let them talk. You just keep on moving. You just keep on doing what you got to do to work on you. Because can I tell you, it's going to pay off. The Bible says those that suffer with me shall reign with me. So this is Apostle Elisa Biggers. I pray that this message was a blessing to you all. And I will see you all Thursday on Deliver Me From Me. Be blessed. And share this message with somebody. Amen. Like it and share.